For millions of years, life has been protected by a fragile layer that filters the sun's ultraviolet rays before they reach the Earth's surface. Without it, no being would survive on the planet. Ultraviolet rays would be strong enough to cause severe burns, eye damage, and irreversible environmental changes in just 5 minutes.
La capa de ozono es muy importante porque protege todo lo que es el planeta.
Si no estuviera la capa de ozono, ya hubiéramos muerto.
The ozone layer is a sign of life. It filters ultraviolet radiation and helps human beings in the production of vitamin D, which is important for preventing certain diseases. In Colombia, hundreds of citizens commuting from their homes to work and other destinations every day have a way of knowing the threats of excessive sun exposure. Optical sensors capture and show the intensity of ultraviolet radiation with colors. The solmáforos are a part of a national awareness program that demonstrates the important role that the ozone layer plays in our lives.
Este tipo de campañas son importantes para que la población en general conozca la relación entre la capa de ozono y la radiación ultravioleta y qué relación tiene ese aumento de la radiación ultravioleta en la salud humana y en el medio ambiente.
For the time being, the alert is no longer red. The scenario of destruction in which we live in, if the ozone layer were to be depleted, is becoming more distant. However, the thinning of our protective shield will continue if the world keeps emitting chemical substances that are harmful to the atmosphere. Every effect has a cause, and every action a consequence. For decades, while humanity sought non-toxic and safer substances for the refrigeration, air conditioning, aerosol, synthetic foam, and extinguisher industries, millions of tons of chlorofluorocarbons, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, halons, carbon tetrachloride, and methyl chloroform were unknowingly being emitted into the atmosphere, compounds that years later were categorized as ozone-depleting substances, ODS. Science has revealed the severe consequences of a potential man-made environmental disaster. In the 70s, scientists discovered that a single atom of chlorine released by CFCs and HCFCs was capable of destroying up to 100,000 ozone molecules. At each austral spring, an ozone hole opens over Antarctica, putting humanity at risk. In 1987, the alarming news of the depletion of the ozone layer gathered the world's nations together to sign the Montreal Protocol, which is now the only universally ratified environmental agreement.
El Protocolo de Montreal ha sido crucial para evitar la destrucción masiva de la capa de ozono gracias a la firme voluntad política y al esfuerzo sostenido de los gobiernos frente a la evidencia del problema. Después de 25 años, el protocolo ha reducido la liberación de las sustancias que atacan la capa de ozono y se ha eliminado el 98% del uso de las mismas a nivel mundial. Ha tenido positivas consecuencias para el ambiente, tanto en el nivel de la protección de la capa de ozono como para el sistema climático y el mantenimiento de la diversidad biológica.
Initially, the Montreal Protocol established strict schedules for both developed and developing countries that were committed to phasing out ODS. The Montreal Protocol Multilateral Fund and the Ozone Secretariat help countries to formulate policies, enforce ODS control, strengthen institutional capacities, as well as assist them on the implementation of technical projects through its implementing agencies. United Nations Development Program, UNDP, United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, World Bank, and bilateral agencies. Meanwhile, the industry seeks technological alternatives that respond to environmental, technical, and economic requirements for a new ozone-friendly era.
Nuestra región está avanzando en experiencias en la sustitución de HCFCs por refrigerantes naturales. La mayoría de las experiencias de la región son iniciativas privadas. Sin embargo, desde el gobierno y desde las unidades técnicas de ozono de los diferentes países avanzamos en la implementación de estrategias que viabilicen a que estas nuevas tecnologías y estas nuevas alternativas lleguen.
The 33 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean that are committed to the objectives of the Montreal Protocol have seen the gradual rise of alternative technologies to replace the HCFCs that are commonly used in foam and refrigeration manufacturing. The intention is to rescue our environment by phasing out chemical substances which were, at one time, used for our well-being.
Estamos regresando al uso de hidrocarburos, de CO2, de amoníaco, que ya se utilizaron en el pasado, pero ahora con una mayor eficiencia energética, con un desarrollo tecnológico que nos permite tener más eficiencia, que inclusive nos permite un menor uso de energía.
HCFCs are substances that have a low ozone depleting potential, but they are gases with a high global warming potential, which can be up to 1,700 times that of one molecule of carbon dioxide. Once released into the atmosphere, the damage is inevitable, and its effects are long-lasting. Refrigeration, and thus HCFCs, is part of our lives and comfort in daily situations like buying ice cream, drinks on the street, foods in supermarkets, or working in air-conditioned offices. This raises a new challenge: how to cool without warming the planet.
A nossa expectativa para o futuro é que a gente possa substituir os HCFCs por refrigerantes naturais, porque você vai continuar podendo ter refrigeradores, ar-condicionado, a sociedade continua fazendo uso desses equipamentos, então vão continuar tendo a sua geladeira em casa, seu ar-condicionado, nos supermercados, tudo vai ser refrigerado, mas de uma maneira ambientalmente mais sustentável. Então é isso que a gente pretende com o Protocolo de Montreal.
In 2010, ozone officials and experts attended a seminar in Bogotá, Colombia, organized by the United Nations Environment Program, the UNEP, in order to exchange experiences on the use of natural fluids in the refrigeration and air conditioning sector in the Caribbean, Latin America, and Europe. Participants had the opportunity to learn about innovative approaches to different types and sizes of commercial and industrial facilities from both sides of the Atlantic. Tomás Cleto, ammonia specialist, knows that natural refrigerants, unlike traditional synthetic fluorinated gases HCFCs, can have significant energy efficiency gains and reduce operating costs.
A amônia no Brasil sempre teve lugar muito importante dentro da área de refrigeração industrial, principalmente nas indústrias de alimentos e bebidas. Podemos dizer aí que mais de 80% ou talvez mais do que 90% das instalações, o fluido mais utilizado é a amônia.
For São Paulo, Brazil, an industrial production megacity, meeting the welfare needs of its 20 million inhabitants poses a challenge to its development. However, a great potential for energy savings exists in its industries, shops, and offices. The market for HCFC replacements in commercial applications is being challenged by technology competitors, including a new generation of synthetic fluorinated gases with low global warming potential and natural refrigerants like CO2.
Seu potencial de aquecimento global praticamente é desprezível. E, além das questões ecológicas, os benefícios para os clientes finais que aderirem à utilização do CO2 está exatamente na questão de eficiência energética. A economia de energia a favor do CO2 fica em torno de uns 20% em relação aos fluidos tradicionais como o R22 ou R404A.
According to application engineer Alessandro da Silva, 3 years ago, when CO2 technology was introduced in the Brazilian market, the cost of this kind of application went from 40% more to just 20% more when compared to the cost of other traditional facilities. This natural refrigerant has already been installed in more than 30 supermarkets in Brazil, as well as in Venezuela, Colombia, and industrial applications in Ecuador. The strategy to promote the use of CO2 in supermarkets across Latin America, a representative consumption subsector of HCFC 22 and blends in the region, has been carried out from this multinational's laboratory. The equipment we find in many establishments suffer with irregular maintenance. The cracks on the pipes and other parts can affect the system's performance, causing refrigerant leaks. The frequent gas loads, necessary to maintain temperatures of countless damaged freezing cabinets and coolers, represent a high cost to end users, a price which is also paid by the environment. The sun's radiation represents a challenge for tourists and locals in the Caribbean, where tourism is the main source of employment and income. How much energy is used, and how is the atmosphere affected by meeting tourism's demand? A great opportunity arises along the 1,000 kilometers of the hot and sunny Jamaican coastlines for a concerted shift towards the use of natural refrigerants. A double benefit with the compliance of global climate's guidelines and the protection of the ozone layer. The Inter-American Development Bank, with support from multilateral agencies, approved the CHENACT Advanced Program, focused on achieving greater efficiency in energy usage. The conversion of air conditioning units in small and medium hotels in the Caribbean is being promoted with technical support and funds of up to $2 million. It is estimated that the individual upfront investment of an establishment is recovered in 10 months to a year maximum.
Air conditioning represents, in most of the hotels, more than 50% of the energy demand for that particular property. And in most properties that we have worked with, the air conditioning demand on it for electricity and also in capital cost is roughly in the region of 60 to 85%. And therefore it is a significant component in the hotel industry itself.
Dr. Horace Nelson, an enthusiast, academic, and expert in refrigeration technologies at the University of Technology, Jamaica, explains the successful experiences carried out on campus. In a tropical climate, this 50-ton air conditioning unit runs on hydrocarbons and is used to cool offices and classrooms. The split air conditioning systems mounted in these walls work perfectly after the exchange of R22 by the hydrocarbon R290. The retrofitting technique does not require significant replacement of parts on the equipment, and it has generated a 20% reduction in the total energy consumed in these buildings.
To retrofit a system, in other words, if we have a 12,000 BTU mini split, it would cost us $90 to do that complete retrofit. Jamaica spends about $1.8 billion per year in oil, and we figured that air conditioning equipment accounts for 70% of that $1.8 billion. So if we could save a small percentage, 20%, it would be of significant benefit to us.
We leave sunny Jamaica and travel to Medellin, Colombia, known as the city of the eternal spring, where cooling without warming the planet is an institutional goal. The district cooling of La Alpujarra, led by Empresas Públicas de Medellín, is an innovative project that will change all individual air conditioning systems, including a chiller with CFC11. In their place, a collective building refrigeration system will be installed using absorption technology with lithium bromide combined with the R132A synthetic refrigerant. A thermal station will be responsible for generating cold, producing chilled water at 4 degrees Celsius, which will be transported via underground pipes to each building, with estimated savings of between 40 and 60% in the use of energy in air conditioning and comfort systems.
El reto es poder darle a los usuarios una tarifa que sea económicamente cómoda, muy similar o inclusive inferior a los costos que actualmente tienen por la refrigeración.
Supporting public strategies to reduce the impact on the ozone layer, considering the risks we are subject to, is one of the main goals of the Montreal Protocol. Each one of the national HCFC's phase-out management plans, HPMPs, take into account the needs for managing the consumption demand of HCFCs, sometimes restricting their import through licensing and quota systems, while also offering environment-friendly options for the substitution of these substances. These initiatives have a gradual impact in the region's business and economic environments. The political and regulatory instruments arise in order to minimize the risks for society and the market barriers to this ongoing transformation.
Las barreras a la introducción de alternativas que hemos identificado hasta la fecha son, en primer lugar, por supuesto, la financiación para poder reconvertir las empresas. En segundo lugar, es la disponibilidad en el mercado de la sustancia.
Institucionalmente se han ido implementando algunas acciones como la promoción del uso de refrigerantes naturales a través de programas de capacitación a técnicos en el que de alguna forma se trata de hacer valer las ventajas comparativas que tiene el uso de los refrigerantes naturales respecto a los refrigerantes convencionales.
Poder tener una comparación real, hay que considerar ciertos aspectos físico-químicos, termodinámicos, estequiométricos y de eficiencia energética que pueden llevar a que la ecuación final, el costo de este tipo de tecnología, pueda ser similar a la de la utilización con el R22.
A principal barreira que nós temos enfrentado aqui no Brasil é a questão da segurança, né? Porque as empresas elas estão colocadas não necessariamente em locais que é possível a utilização de alternativas que possam vir a ser inflamáveis, em algum momento causar algum tipo de impacto na questão da segurança.
La tecnología yo no la considero que es peligrosa en tanto se maneje con los protocolos de seguridad que se deben establecer. Y eso es algo que debemos trabajar fuertemente porque la misma refrigeración en condiciones normales de uso de refrigerantes químicos ha tolerado la implementación o el uso de malas prácticas.
La certificación por competencia laboral permite primeramente a los técnicos el reconocimiento de su destreza profesional, de su destreza laboral. Al empresario permite contar con técnicos capacitados, certificados y competentes.
From the earliest stages of the Montreal Protocol, when CFCs were the main focus of the global initiative, all countries launched large-scale training activities for refrigeration technicians. Despite the resistance to natural refrigerants due to their flammable properties, many countries adopted hydrocarbons in their good practices workshops early on. Some of the pioneers in the region were Cuba, Uruguay, Bolivia, and more recently, Honduras, Guatemala, Colombia, Argentina, Jamaica, and Mexico, among others. Now, in order to replace HCFCs in more complex commercial and industrial refrigeration installations, it is necessary to have a network of qualified servicing professionals, depending on the difficulty of each type of system.
La importancia de la certificación está relacionada justamente con la calidad de la actividad que nosotros realizamos a nivel laboral.
El propósito es elevar la calidad del trabajo y la garantía que se le pueda dar a los clientes y se le pueda dar a la industria en general con las aplicaciones a nivel de mantenimiento, instalaciones de sistemas de aire, refrigeración y ventilación.
This training center invests in knowledge for overcoming the barriers associated with cutting-edge technologies, qualifying refrigeration professionals. The SENA Vocational Institute is the conveyor of best practices in Colombia, similar to other entities that are interconnected with their respective country's industrial sector. These centers ensure the provision of technicians to meet the sector's demands required for the replacement of HCFCs.
Para la región de América Latina, el Caribe y Colombia, el contar con técnicos o tecnólogos con certificación de estándares de desempeño es importante porque es la manera como la sociedad reconoce que las personas son competentes para lo que dicen saber hacer. Tenemos una responsabilidad como país y es la única manera como realmente podemos, desde el punto de vista de la sociedad, responder porque esos procesos se hagan con la idoneidad que se requiere.
In Guatemala City, overlooked by the Pacaya volcano, is one of the largest commercial refrigeration companies in Latin America. It produces more than 120 equipment models with more than 250 versions. Annually, 150,000 units are distributed to the main beverage, soft drink, cherry and natural juice companies in 48 countries. In order to adopt R290 hydrocarbon, the company has changed the engineering of its production lines. Seeking to overcome the possible barriers and disadvantages of hydrocarbons, a strategy was created to deal with the limited availability of technicians trained in the handling of such gases. One of its models has a removable deck system to avoid the flammable risks and allowing professionals to perform maintenance services in a safe place.
Este tipo de refrigerador que usa hidrocarburos actualmente tiene unos mercados limitados, pero no es tanto por alguna reglamentación de que no los permita entrar al país, sino que es temor de los clientes por el tema de la flamabilidad.
Guatemala is one of the countries in which a good theory became a practice. The expansion of the market for hydrocarbon-based equipment has overstepped the limits of the country, showing new prospects to several niches in the refrigeration market. In Europe and some Asian countries, there is a good market penetration of domestic hydrocarbon-based equipment. It is estimated that there are nearly 350 million refrigerators in these regions that already use them. Leading Asian companies in the global air conditioning market are also manufacturing air conditioning with natural refrigerants on a large scale, targeting consumers in developed countries. There are strict regulations there for the imports of equipment with greenhouse effect substances, as well as those using some synthetic fluoride gases. Acceptance of products with natural fluids by end consumers in Latin America and the Caribbean shall increase once safety measures and technical guidelines for their use are adopted.
El cuadro legal es muy general. Solamente viene hablando el último decreto que se dictó en Costa Rica del sistema de cuotas, de más o menos todo lo que está regulado en la HPMP. Estas nuevas normas tendríamos que introducirlas por normas voluntarias, por normas técnicas, no necesariamente por reglamentos del Poder Ejecutivo. Creo que la importancia de la normativa es que va a dar un impulso adicional. A veces la gente por iniciativa propia no va a buscar alternativas porque ya se acostumbraron a una forma de hacer las cosas. De manera que si no tiene este requisito o esta obligación, pues van a pretender hacer siempre las cosas como las han hecho.
Nosotros estamos trabajando en el control de sustancias, las HCFCs ya hemos establecido el sistema de cuotas para la eliminación, pero también tenemos un problema que es la disponibilidad del uso de gases alternativos, ya que Paraguay es exclusivamente importador, dependemos mucho del sector comercial. Contar con una política que permita el uso de las alternativas con mayor disponibilidad y que el costo sea menor.
Ya desde el año 1983 existía una norma del Instituto Uruguayo de Normas Técnicas sobre la utilización de refrigerantes inflamables. En muchos países donde esta tecnología se está trabajando hace bastantes años, como ser en países de Europa, Alemania específicamente, existen muchas normativas al respecto. Yo lo que recomiendo es que cada uno trate de recopilar todas estas normativas y vea cómo las puede adaptar a su país.
Despite advances in the development of more efficient and climate and ozone-friendly fluorinated gases, domestic refrigeration is one of the sectors where the most natural fluids are used. In Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador, there are companies that have already converted their plants in order to fill refrigeration circuits in refrigerators with isobutane. But the challenge is not only to produce cold, but also to contain it within the walls of the refrigerator in an ozone and climate-friendly way. A large multinational with operations in 4 countries in South and North America started replacing HCFC with cyclopentane in thermal insulation foam, obtaining better quality products to be sold in foreign markets.
Principal reto fue el realizar todo este cambio del corazón de una empresa de refrigeración, que es el proceso de inyección de poliuretano rígido, con una planta operando y con el reto adicional de no perder un solo día de producción.
With the assistance of the Montreal Protocol, several private domestic refrigeration companies in the region follow the same process of converting foams to cyclopentane. This happens in Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Mexico. The impact of these projects is crucial for the country's compliance with the HCFC's phase-out targets. By 2015, there must be at least a 10% reduction in annual consumption in these countries, compared to the average of years 2009-2010. In Argentina, since 2002, a company adopted green freeze technology for its production line of refrigerators and freezers, including 2 types of environmentally friendly gases, isobutane to the cooling circuit and cyclopentane in the insulation foam.
En la década del 90 estábamos produciendo heladeras con gases que eran contaminantes. En el año 2000 hicimos la transformación en la parte de espumado, donde pasamos del R11 al ciclopentano y a continuación pasamos al ciclo isopentano en la parte de aislación. Y en el 2002 hicimos la conversión total de las heladeras al nuevo refrigerante, que era el R600 o isobutano.
4 large manufacturers in Colombia have implemented industrial reconversion in their plants in order to phase out HCFCs in foam insulation, with an investment of $5.6 million from the Multilateral Fund of the Montreal Protocol. The experience also eliminated the risk of releasing 56 ODP tons, equivalent to 620,000 tons of CO2 per year.
Esto implicó el cambio de los equipos instalados en 1997 y la adopción de toda una serie de equipos de seguridad asociados con el uso y manejo del ciclopentano.
El proyecto contó con la reconversión de 12 modelos de neveras, 6 modelos no frost y 6 modelos convencionales. Finalmente, todas las neveras de la compañía se están fabricando en esta nueva forma de trabajo, en esta tecnología nueva.
With the exponential sales increase of more environment-friendly equipment throughout the world, this is where refrigerators and air conditioning units that have completed their life cycle end up. Under the intense midday sun in the industrial complex of Celaya, Mexico, we visited a company specialized in recycling refrigeration scraps and waste. Around this sophisticated reverse manufacturing plant, with similar technology in the region found only in Brazil, up to 70 tons of CFCs, HCFCs, and HFCs are recovered per year. Technicians separate the oil from the old compressors and the foam boards. For the climate regime, demanufacturing 300,000 refrigerators is the equivalent of taking 900,000 cars out of circulation. At the same time, air conditioning units receive the same treatment. In the same place, equipments that can be reused are returned to the market filled with hydrocarbons.
Los procesos de reconversión son básicamente dos. Uno, el que llamamos nosotros drop-in, que es un mete y saca. Recuperas el refrigerante que tiene nocivo al medio ambiente. El otro es el que llamamos retrofit, que es como una regeneración del equipo, como regresarlo a su estado nuevo, como fue fabricado.
This demanufacturing scenario, with hundreds of foam insulation panels and old electrical appliances, gives us an idea of the volume of HCFCs still found in Latin America and the Caribbean. The sooner the refrigerants in these units can be recovered, better impacts can be harvested. That was the mindset of this company that produces frozen drinks, sold on the street and in stores in 6 countries. Since 3 years ago, they are converting their old CFC-12 freezing equipment to hydrocarbons.
Todo este refrigerante R12 recuperado entra a un proceso de almacenamiento y correcta disposición para asegurar que no estamos impactando el medio ambiente.
Each kilo of fluorinated refrigerant gas that is controlled along the way will be 1 less kilo of damage for the planet. The journey through our region uncovers dozens of innovative projects and many indicators of change towards a future in the protection and respect of the ozone layer and our climate. The expansion of supermarkets, hotels, buildings and industry throughout the world is one of the factors that contribute to the growth of the regional economy, with an important role reserved for technological development of the refrigeration and air conditioning industry. By responding to this growth, the commitment of the Montreal Protocol can be met successfully and in an environment-friendly way. The solmáforos indicate that the balance between man's needs for comfort and respect for nature is also a sign of well-being and fulfillment. The path for Latin America and the Caribbean leads us to an important conclusion. Yes, it is possible to cool without warming the planet.